Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka MonoBlueTron, back with my second match in the Mokuba League tournament. Now if you don't know what the Mokuba League is, just watch my other video, asshole. No, I'm kidding. There's a link in the description to a video on YGOTolley's channel as well as one on Cimoooooo's channel that explains it pretty well, but basically it's the small YugiTuber counterpart to Cimoooooo's yearly large YugiTuber tournament. The grand prize is one follicle of hair from his glorious beard, so we're in it to win it. Our opponent for round 2 is BenGGie, BenGGie? I hope I'm saying this right. It's a cool name, but hard to pronounce. From the Legacy Invaders YugiTube channel. There will be a link to that in the description as well. Go ahead and check out his videos, get him that sweet ad revenue, and sub while you're at it. We're playing Prediction Princess Shaddolls, a deck that I'm not particularly well known for, but fun fact, was the first ever episode of 10-minute testing. If you scroll all the way back to the inception of my YugiTube career about a year ago, there it is with about 62 views, even in the year 2017. I went to go re-watch it in order to get ideas for this deck list and just cringed the whole time. It's done on an internal mic through a laptop, so it's basically unlistenable. We've opened quite well. In the dice roll that happened off screen, our opponent chose to go second, so I'm expecting one of three things. Either he's playing a combo deck that bricks often and therefore wants 6 cards in hand, or he's playing a deck that requires your opponent to really have monsters to go off, something like Cyber Dragons, or, I don't know, maybe Kaiju, or most likely he's playing some sort of interactive hand deck like Psyframes. So he's going to activate Psyframe Gear Alpha. That's not particularly good news for us, because it means he's going to have access to a Gamma, but thankfully we have a copy of Solemn Strike set, so we'll go ahead and use Terratai's effect in order to get our copy of Pot of the Forbidden from our graveyard to our field, and really we're trying to set up the OTK basically every turn of this duel. This deck is not particularly resilient, so making sure you can get in chip damage and establish OTKs by hitting sweet Solemn Strikes is basically the only way you win the game. I'm ready to activate Pot of the Forbidden's Forceful Sentry effect, either get the Gamma out of his hand or force him to use it, after which I will take a second card out of his hand after Solemn Striking. He's going to go ahead, check his hand, and pass it back. Classic Psyframe. I'm also a little suspicious because Psyframe does not have 60 playables, so I expect that there is something else going on in this deck. Thankfully, the Forceful Sentry is just the most broken card in the history of time. More important than taking the card out of their hand often is the ability to play with perfect information, and once I do so, I have a pretty good idea of what I'm going to board. I see that he's also playing a Zombie Engine, which makes sense in a 60-card deck. He's got Mizuki, Unizombie, Solitaire, and Curry Bandit in his hand. We'll shuffle back this beta because now I know he can't do anything to interact with me on my turn. I'll go ahead and normal summon this Shaddol Dragon and attack for not exactly 8,000 points of damage, but pretty darn close. Not a particularly exciting first game, but, you know, it is what it is. We'll go ahead and go into battle. Our opponent takes 8,000 for the benefit of you watching at home, and we jump into sideboarding. Now, the sideboarding process takes a little bit of time, so I'll explain card choices during that. I think the better version of the Prediction Princess deck is, in fact, Subterra's Ultramaphus fulfills the condition on his own, and also is a very powerful card, quaking at instant speed. Might as well be another mode on Pot of the Forbidden, but unfortunately, we don't have access to that because we're using the world's ban list and their TCG exclusives. I find the Shaddolls particularly weak in this deck. Beast is 5 stars, and you really need high amounts of stars to pay for Terratai's 9-star cost. So Beast plus like a Manju does it, but the rest of the Shaddolls are just terrible. They're in there because we can play Shaddolls as a backup plan, but it's not particularly powerful. Honestly, the best draw is you get to play Shaddol Fusion, which is a very powerful card against a variety of decks, and I expect to see a variety of decks in this tournament. We board into some Kaijus because having seen the half of the deck that includes Solitaire, I expect to see Omega, and I would like to be able to tribute over him. Our opponent elects to go second again, which is probably bad news for us. We've opened a hand that can get Terratai, but not make her because we don't have enough stars. He's going to alpha our Manju, and thankfully we don't even have to engage with this line of thought. We have 2 copies of Solemns in our hand, 3 Solemns in the format, and we have 2 of them in the opener. To some degree it's good because we get to negate 2 things, but to many degrees it's terrible because it means effectively we have bricked. If that other Solemn was just a Terratai or something, I don't know, actually it would have been probably a lot worse for us because we would have gotten gammoned at a point that mattered a lot more. Our opponent is going to activate Pot of Desires. He reveals in his own video on this specific match. That he banished his other copy of Psyframe Driver, 2 drivers and 60 cards, seems about right. It's unfortunate when this kind of thing occurs. So the Psyframes currently sitting in his hand are basically useless, but thankfully he does have ways to return banished cards face down to his deck, as you will see in a couple of turns. He's going to normal summon Shinrai Solitaire. I'm fine with that. He's going to activate the effect, and that is basically my cue to activate Solemn Strike. I am more than happy to activate Solemn Strike on Shinrai Solitaire, basically the #1 target for this card. He then activates Psychic Field Zone, and I go, oh, I guess I'm out of Solemns. He's got 4 cards in hand. I have 3 after draw. This is not looking particularly good. We'll go ahead and flip up that Solemn, take a cool 2,000 points of damage to prevent some sort of psychic feeling from overwhelming us, since a Guard Dog and a Prediction Princess Ritual aren't really going to do it on the crackback. Our opponent is, I think, just going to pass it back to us, maybe set 1 before doing so. Yeah. So we draw into a Shaddoll Beast, not really a particularly good draw. I mean, it's good for, you know, having 5 stars, but very bad insofar as we can't actually set it, and it doesn't fill the condition on its own, and it's also not Terratai. I mean, we're basically in pre-prep or bust mode. Our opponent sets a second card and passes it back, and this is what happens when an unstoppable force hits an immovable object, or more likely when 2 decks brick against each other. This is a part of Yu-Gi-Oh! That you just don't get to see in today's modern meta. Zodiac versus True Draco, you very often do not see either deck brick. In fact, it's quite hard to do so for both archetypes. When you start dipping into tier 7 like people in this tournament have been excited to do, then you get plays like pass back after doing nothing. We draw into a Squamata. I guess we can set this. I mean, maybe we can set up an impenetrable wall to protect us from the zombie OTK turn or something. He's gonna, I think, set another card and pass back. I expect that I'm gonna get Solemned out of this game, and the 4 cards in his hand are all hand traps. We draw into Jizikuri, and I'm thinking for a second, I'm like, is there some sort of Shaddoll we can fusion summon here? I mean, we have a dark and a light in our hand. Is there a dark and a light Shaddoll monster? Some sort of Shaddoll... It's on the tip of my tongue. Some sort of card we could construct? I just can't think of one. Anyway, we draw into another Guard Dog. I'm just going to pass it back again, just really sitting on nothing right now. Maybe I should have set this Guard Dog, but why? Finally, our opponent draws into something that advances someone's linear game plan. They'll go ahead and activate this Foolish Burial Goods in order to send a copy of Psyframe Overload. That means he'll be able to banish it on our turn. We draw into a Terratai, and I think, okay, maybe we can make something happen. He's going to add a copy of, I think, Psyframe Gear Gamma to his hand, or does he get Delta? Yeah, he gets Delta. So I'd prefer not for Delta's effect to go off. We'll flip up Guard Dog and activate Guard Dog's effect. That prevents him from special summoning any Psyframes this turn, basically turning them off after we navigate Dueling Book's incredible UI and lag. We do get this Guard Dog, and immediately our opponent flips up a Breakthrough Skill. Pretty good, but I think Breakthrough Skill is one of the better things we could hope for these 3 set cards to be. That basically shuts down our whole turn. I'm not particularly interested in walking into the Delta I know he has. We're going to get in for 1,500. As always, important to get little chip damage in, especially with a deck that has such a hard time OTKing. We'll set the second Guard Dog, try for the same play next turn, and pass it back. Our opponent is going to... This is a very interesting turn. Very heads up from our opponent. Some pretty exciting plays. They're going to start by, I believe, activating the Overload. Yep, they have a set Overload they'll activate, banishing our set Guard Dog face down. Unfortunately, Dueling Book does not have a good way to do that from field, so we'll fumble with it for a second before returning it to the top of our deck, then banishing the top card of our deck. Really good workaround. Great job, team. Afterwards, they're going to go into main phase 1, normal summon Necroface, which returns the driver that I did not know was banished face down back to their deck, effectively turning on the Delta that could potentially screw us up, especially now that we don't have access to a Guard Dog to prevent them from using it. Bear with me as we all return 75 cards from our Banish Zone to our decks. Thankfully, this Necroface is only at about 27, I believe, because it gets 1,500 from the 14 of my opponent's cards and 1 of mine. We do have a Squamata set, which means we will be able to destroy it and potentially get in for a little more damage. Worst case scenario, we can always Kaiju over it, but that is a very worst case scenario. They'll go ahead and attack into our face-down monster. We'll flip up this Squamata and use it to destroy the Necroface. Not what I had hoped would happen, but fine nonetheless. It goes to graveyard, and I believe In main phase 2, our opponent makes a really heads-up play by twin twistering, targeting their own overload. It gives them access to overload, but more important, now that Necroface is destroyed, they have access to Shinrai's Spectral Sword's effect to banish a zombie. So I know if my opponent gets their turn next turn, I'm probably screwed. So we're going to try and win right now. Now, we know after this overload gets banished that my opponent has a Gamma in hand. So I figure, maybe we can win through Gamma. Now the line by which we do this is normal summon Spirit of the Fallwind. Now, if he doesn't negate Spirit of the Fallwind, we can win without activating a monster's effect. It depends on him not using Gamma to target Spirit of the Fallwind, but in all honesty, it makes sense not to do so, since you mostly want to use Gamma to stop Princess Teratai or Pot of the Forbidden or something like that. So we'll use Spirit of the Fallwind. We do get the effect off. It is permitted. So we'll go ahead and go into our deck, grab ourselves a Pot of the Forbidden, and go off to the races. The first thing we're going to do is activate ourselves our copy of, I believe, Shaddoll Fusion to get Shekinaga. Shekinaga, of course, has 2600 attack, which makes it a very sufficient beater, even if it doesn't do anything else. One last look at our opponent's graveyard to make sure he doesn't have anything spell speed 2. Oh, we do, in fact, lead with Teratai. Is that true? Yes? No? Yes? No? Yes? Judge? Slow play? Can we get a warning here? Excuse me? This is sped up 35 times its normal speed? A year elapsed between this turn? At least move the mouse so that I know you're alive? Ah, okay, there we go. We'll just move to main phase 1 real quick. Then, after that long wait in which I actually count things, I'm not particularly good at math, which accounts for the counting, we will activate, like I thought 5 minutes ago, Shaddoll Fusion. We'll send our copy of Shaddoll Beast and our copy of Pot of the Forbidden. Thankfully, Shaddoll Beast is, in fact, an optional effect, so we will elect not to use it. We'll go ahead and get our copy of Shekinaga, then activate Prediction Ritual, sending our 11-star Jizikuri, the star-destroying kaiju, to special summon Prediction Princess Teratai, and get in for game. We did it. Our opponent does not have anything, and whew, we really sacked out that one. Sometimes you win a game and you think, there's no way I should have won that. This is 10 times more of a victory than any other game where I thought that. It's revealed afterwards that his hand is like a couple of Ghost Ogres, the Psyframe Gamma, and a couple other dead things. If I had passed it back, certainly we would have lost and had to go to game 3, but we were able to sniff out a victory here. So that's it for me. A second round victory puts me in top 8. Good game to BenGGie. Once again, check out his channel at Legacy Invaders YugiTube, link in the description. I will see you next week with my next round.